Hi, everyone. It's the Catholic CEO, Henry Kutarna. Welcome to this Exemplary Catholic Leaders series. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Father Mykhailo Ozorovych. Father, how are you today?
Very well, very well. Thank you, Henry. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for coming along. I wanted to tell our audience that Father Ozorovych is the rector of the Holy Eucharist Ukrainian Catholic Cathedral in New Westminster, British Columbia. And Father has an interesting story about where he came from. And so let's begin right away, Father. Let's find out about your Catholic vocation, where you were born, and how did you end up at the cathedral in New Westminster?
Well, I was born and raised in Ukraine, so that's my heritage and my ancestry, and that's where I spent first 20 years of my life. So born in city Ivano-Frankivsk, Western Ukraine, kind of very close by the mountains, Carpathian Mountains. That's envelope Ukraine and Poland and Europe. So grew up in a family that didn't really go to church. This is just post-Soviet time. My dad was a police officer, and I'm pretty sure if he said that he believes in God, he would not have a job that he had in early 1990s. My mom was somewhat faithful, and so dragged me to church pretty forcefully first years of my life. Um, and then something changed. I saw a nun in full habit playing soccer outside of the
Mhm.
church on Sunday, and that puzzled me. That I wouldn't say scandalized me, but it definitely got me excited and interested what this is all about. And then I learned that our parish has this religious order that takes care of catechism, children ministry, and then I was interested, and they told you they give you, tea and cookies and sweets. And for me that was, wow, this is, free stuff, free food is always good. And so I went to that youth group meeting, or it was still probably preteens meeting, and then met friends there, somehow got pulled into being altar server and being a competitive guy. All four divine liturgies on a Sunday, I was altar serving because, that was just what I enjoyed, like doing, and it was, very rewarding in many ways. So fast forward, I was an exchange student in the States for 1 year in my last year of my high school. So lived in the States, had absolutely no connection to church, God whatsoever. Nobody was, my church is not there. My parents are not there. Then I felt like, okay, I can live whatever life. And that was definitely without God and without prayer. It was a lot of homesickness, a lot of probably like teenage depression. It was in Minnesota, so cold, dark. First 2 months of August, September was fun, and then it was very, very tough, and then it all got better again. And it was important in my faith journey as well to have that moment. I didn't do drugs, didn't do alcohol. It's not that I was, living a life of, debauchery and like a younger son in the parable. But it was just life free from God and church and everything like that. And people ask me, what you're going to do when you go back. I said, I'm going to be international relationship. I'm going to go to diplomacy school. I was fluent in English, French. And so that was my career. And then when I came back from the States, the next month, I entered the seminary right away. Because 2 years before that, I was at a silent retreat, Ignatian retreat, run by that religious order in my parish. And that's when I would say that my, vocation got ignited. So that's where I responded to the basic question: what are we created for? To love, to serve, to worship God. And what is the best way to do it? For me, it was like, duh, be a priest. There's no other. It never clicked for me that you can be a holy teacher and a holy, homemaker, or lawyer, or doctor. For me, it's like there's no other way to serve God to the best possible is to be a priest. And so that's when it started. My parents didn't allow me to enter that religious order. And so they said no to that. And then this exchange program came up. And so they didn't feel like saying no twice. So they allowed me to go to live in the States for a year when I was 15, 16. And then when I came back, I entered the seminary. And then 3 years was in Ukrainian Catholic bishop from Westminster for British Columbia here, was visiting my seminary in Ukraine, and he just looked what a brilliant young man this Mykhailo is, and so he invited me to come to Canada. And then last 4 years of my education were in Ottawa at Ukrainian Catholic Seminary in Ottawa, and then I've been a pastor here at the rector at the Cathedral for the last 7 and a bit years.
That's great, Father. Father, some people tell me that when they've converted, let's say, or had a reconversion, a reversion, they either come the intellectual route or they get sort of stricken off their horse, like St. Paul did. And I'm hearing both in your case. You went to a retreat, and that was a powerful moment, but then you came to it intellectually, I guess, later through study.
For me, it was all practical. It's like how I would call it. Like it wasn't intellectual in the sense like I was, considering the meaning of life, and I had a revelation of any sort, and and it wasn't kind of from that perspective where like I was very far from God, and then I was like, for me it was a gradual. But for me, all the questions of my vocation was very practical. Like first one, what is the best way to serve God? And then for me, that was just a very practical answer. No deep theology. It was just simply kind of for me what made logically sense. Then when I was discerning what to do, actually, the lie I told about the diplomacy and international relationship school, I then what really makes me happy. I had very good grades, and I had equally good grades in math, chemistry, languages. All was good, like all was on the same level. And then I asked me, what does really make me happy, like for real? And that competitive and ultra serving in the parish, what that was my answer. Like it was that's actually what makes me happy, not what I'm good at, not what gifts I have. It wasn't kind of even that discernment. It was just what just makes me happy, and it was being at the altar, being serving at the altar, making sure again very practically, so that everything was run smooth in the liturgy, so the priest and the people can pray and have this experience. So yeah, I would be kind of very practical, logical, coming to the Lord, and helping myself then in service now.
Sure. So, Father, you and I know each other fairly well. I've been to Divine Liturgy at your parish, and so maybe tell us about your parish. What is it like, and what are some of the things that people are facing in their day-to-day life as your parishioners?
Well, Ukrainian Catholic Church has been in Canada for 130, 40 years, as a structure for over 110 years. So it's been a long-standing entity in the reality of Canada, more so in the prairies and other parts of Canada, not so much here in British Columbia. But even here, this church has been built here for almost 60 years, right? So so I've been blessed of serving this community, but in challenging times, right? So when we look in the last 7 years of me coming young priest to new parish, with very few people in the pew, we see many Roman Catholic churches full of people, but a lot of them are immigrants, and because you have Philippines, Vietnam, so on and so forth. In Ukrainian Catholic Church, you only have one immigrant stream, so to speak, that nourishes the parish, because there is a pretty large apostasy. I wouldn't say that, but people leaving the church, people are not practicing their faith, and not even giving the Lord a chance to speak to them. So that was kind of one challenge of getting a very low attendance, but just numbers were not there. And then COVID, and then the war in Ukraine, kind of those were the challenges in last years. And now ongoing, secularization, and also so relativisms, identity crisis. So all those that everyone is facing, added on top of that. And thankfully, through every of those challenges or problems, I found an opportunity, again, to minister the people, serve those who are here, be it 12 or be it 250 now. Through COVID, live streaming, engaging with people outside divine liturgies. In British Columbia, we had it very tough, where services were closed for months and months, so nothing was allowed, not even in any numbers. And then when some numbers were allowed, we maximized it. When everything was closed, but outdoor services were allowed. We had outdoor divine liturgy. I still have remnants of stuff where we took the church literally outside into the parking lot and had as many divine liturgies as needed to serve everyone who wanted to come. So that was an opportunity. Same with the war. It's a horrific, invasion of my homeland. My parents are still back in Ukraine. All my extended family is still in Ukraine. So it hits home very, very close. Yeah, and is my heart. So, and then seeing that, how can I serve the people who are coming, who are fleeing the war, the refugees, the people who are staying, the people who are fighting, and so looking at all those problems, challenges, and then serving to the best of my ability, journeying with people here with all the crises from financial strains to on an average family to teenagers who have identity crisis. I will put that who are just confused and lost, and are searching for answers, and so being able to journey with them and offer the truth, the beauty, and the goodness of the good news of Christ found in the Catholic Church, in the beautiful expression of it in the Byzantine Rite. So I have some perks, I'll call them, that help me or equip me better to minister to people in the times that we find ourselves in.
So, Father, you mentioned, I guess the concepts of truth, beauty, and goodness. Your background there. I know you're inside of the. You're in the nave of your church and in the cathedral there, and so there's a lot of beautiful artwork that's there. Is that something that attracts people to the concept of faith? Truth, beauty, and goodness. Is that something that works in a positive way?
I am firmly convinced of that. For us, this is traditional. This is not that we're doing revolution, any new inventions. This is how Byzantine churches have been since the very beginning. From Hagia Sophia and in Istanbul, and then all the churches throughout the world in Byzantine Rite. So when a church like this is found in North American context or in very let's give large study of Vancouver, this is a hidden gem. Nobody knows, and the church from outside looks just a box, like it, nothing extraordinary from the outside architecture. But when people enter the church that is full of icons, you just see kind of the sanctuary. But when there is the witness of the the new martyrs of our church that is depicted in the on the sides, right? So those are martyrs who recently and during Soviet times were persecuted for their faith. When they come and then where my help shall come, and people look up to heaven and they see Christ and the beautiful words there, be exalted God above the heavens, above all the earth be your glory, and then seeing this divine worship of angels and Our Lady of the Sign of Emmanuel, God with us, it speaks to them. This all happens in their hearts before they even hear anything. They already see something, and we know people engage in this. This is a video. Like, this is not just podcast or letter that you send out of an interview. People engage in visual very much, and the whole liturgy is all about that. So visual, smell, sound, all of the senses are involved. How we cross ourselves, how we prostrations, the whole body is involved in worshiping the Lord. So this all speaks before even I begin to speak, or before anybody else says something to somebody who just entered the church. So I think it really predisposes the heart to something beautiful, outside of this world, like celestial with gold and with colors. It really is a oasis, a haven. It's very different here than anywhere else outside or in any other building here in Westminster. So having this safe haven for me is a beautiful gift to be served out of it to people.
It's wonderful, Father, because I'm as you know, I'm drawn to the beauty of art as well as the beauty of music, and so I understand that's the safe haven that you speak about. let's think about families then. And so in your parish, people live in the world. They have all of the challenges, and you've pointed out some of these in the world today. What do you say to the young person? You're creating a spiritual atmosphere. I can see that. And yet the children are out there, and the pressure, the kids, the students, the young people, even the adults, the parents, they're all subject to the secular pressure out there. And so you're trying to compensate for that. You're providing a wonderful atmosphere to do that. And yet there's a lot of people, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, in many churches dropping out. They're just leaving the faith, and they're not practicing. In addition to what you're doing, what can you say to them? And I know it's a tough question because, it's not a simple, snappy little answer, but what do you say? What can you tell children or young people about the faith and the necessity of being close to God this way?
But see, for me, this is a very personal question. I'll tell you why. Like, this is not my job is to evangelize and how do I do the well, to fulfill that mission. I'm a married priest. I have 4 kids of my own. So
Yes.
passing on faith is not a job from the pulpit, not even living in the community and serving people with my witness and example, as all priests are called. But it's in my home. I have 8-year-old brilliant son who asks anything and everything, from, what about, heaven and angels, and when we die, what happens to, he comes, he went to funeral with me, all these deep questions. And so for me, it's very, very kind of personal in that sense. So I have to find good answers to 8-year-old. Then maybe I can have a conversation also with the teenage and other people, because it is very challenging to talk to 8-year-olds, engaging in his thought process, and not just tell him, this is what you have to believe in, because that's what catechism said, and repeat it 15 times, and you'll go to heaven. It's very different. You don't do that as a father, as a dad to your children. You try to nourish. You try to bring them, like bringing up, right? Upbringing them. So that's how it is. So that's kind of helps me, but also challenges me. Like, one of the fears that I have, that my kids are going to grow up and not going to go to church. And, what kind of priest am I going to be where, my whatever 19-year-old son is just, doing Zen Buddhist stuff in Himalayas or whatever, and doing the way pilgrimage to St. James in France and Spain, right?
Right.
So that, and then, the ministry exposes then you to the same parents who have the same challenges, and then in the community, it's very, that's the only way to pass on the faith. It's not like individuals, my family, kind of just in my family. It's also community. We creating, being immigrants here. We don't have, like, my kids don't have grandparents here. They don't have grandpa to talk to, or to go to say rosary on Tuesday or whatever. Aunts and uncles, none are here. All are or elsewhere in the world. So for me, that's very important to create this for my kids. First of all, very selfish reasons. If I can save myself, that would be good. If I can do a little bit for my family, then it's already great success. And if some people in the process are also brought closer to God, I would be overjoyed. So creating this, that's why for me, the parish is a family. Like, this is where I was welcomed as a very young priest, still as a seminarian, into this particular, building and the people here. And then parishioners have kids same age, or they are aunts and uncles to my children as well. And then I am a godfather, not just a priest or a spiritual father, but I'm a godfather for, spirit. It is really a family feeling. So I'm blessed that way. And then just journeying. I don't know all the answers, and I don't know, they don't teach everything in the seminary. And when you have these harder questions where teenagers are starting to come and say, I just need advice. I had a friend who changed gender. Can I go to her birthday party? I mean, it's a simple question, but it's reality our kids are facing with, and how to speak that truth in love. And that's where, for me, is speaking truth in love. And that's where we need to really nourish both the love and the truth part. That's where education is very important in the truth, knowing the faith, knowing and being convinced that we have answers to the world as a church, as Catholic Church, as the faith in the person of incarnate Word of God, Jesus Christ. We have truth, the truth, and we have answers to all the questions, really. But also love, also charity, where it's not I'm gonna, you know, militantly go and invade, other people's lands and private homes and convince them of that truth that is true. uh, it is lacking. So they both have to come together, in my opinion, and that's how we try to live here. We try to grow through, not just Sunday worship, but we have Saturday cultural and catechetical school,
Yes.
family camping trips when we go together with other families on camping, where I mean, many different for arts and crafts that we have. We have an iconography school where kids can learn beauty, right? When we add to that speaking truth in love, there's also, beauty and goodness come with that. So this is kind of a formation process for little kids, starting from, babies who are plenty in this parish, who run around, to teenagers, and it works. It's what the young people are thirsty for. It just, we need to create that space for them. We need to create that environment where they can hang out, where they can answer, speak, where they are nourished, but they're also heard. It's engaging and being present. It's showing that same truth and love to them. It's hearing their concerns. Their lives is not our lives, and the problems they are facing is not what we faced. But the beautiful thing is that the Christ has the answer. He is the answer to all of these problems. And we need to facilitate that encounter with the Lord, be it through a little Bible study, a little play, a little, art class, a little dance before fasting periods, anything, right? So, and this is what do we spend our money on? Where do we spend our resources on? And these parish, I'm very happy that that's where our efforts go, to create that space to encountering the Lord.
Well, Father, you very articulate in how and in particular in your situation, the rubber hits the road. You're a married priest with children, and so you have to live, and this is your challenge, as you rightly pointed out. You have to live not only what you have to practice what you preach, is I guess you could say, to use a secular term. I'll ask you another question, one more question about, so this is great. Everything that you do is wonderful. There are people, though, that are in the workplace, or they have businesses and they're trying to be Catholic. What do you say to them? It's particularly the people in business. You can have some control over the situation. You can behave Catholic. You can be ethical. You can be highly principled. You can do things beyond what the minimum levels that the state requires you by the law. But what do you say to, a young person working in the corporate world with all the tough pressures out there? How do they show their Catholicism without, because sometimes they'll have to make the choice between their job and their faith. And that's a tough choice. What would you say on that one? That's a situation that we both know is quite common.
I would tell them many stories that I see in my people, or here across the street here, kitty corner, we had a falafel place, and there was this gentleman from Middle East, Orthodox Christian, who would come every day, every morning. He would come to church, light a candle, pray, didn't stay for the full divine liturgy in the morning, and then do his business. And I would go, eat there once in a while. And he was always complaining about one thing: the business not going well, business not going well. And then I challenge him: why do you work on Sunday? Why don't I see you in church on Sunday? And he accepted the challenge. He started working only 6 days a week.
Interesting.
And then he was then witnessing God provided. Everything is working out. And for me, it was, well, this is a real example where somebody took their faith serious, to accept the challenge, and the Lord provided and was right there with him in that moment, or the chairperson of the parish council right now, right, who was a CEO of the largest electrical company in British Columbia. Hundreds of millions of contract in one hospital here, in US that is still here. I know it because it's public information here, right? So running an electric company, see over 2,000 electricians, from engineers to electricians. But his faith was always there with him, and he was always here with the Lord. He worked on the original electrical for this church and grew from just simple electrician and engineer and graduating UBC to being CEO of this largest electrical company here. And seeing in his life, I don't have to, come up with scenarios. I just say to another electrician or to another business man, look at so and so, see how he does it. It's possible. He is happy. He is, provided wealthy enough. Let's put it that way. He can serve. Lawyers, I mean, again, young men who is trying to really be that. I said, well, there is the Catholic Lawyers Guild, and look at these lawyers who have been Catholics their whole life, who have served the church, who have their practices, their firms, their names everywhere. And it's so there's plenty where the virtuous life never goes out of trend, so to speak. If you have your whole life in whatever you do, in the four cardinal virtues, for example, like in addition to the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity that we hear so much about, but if you're really growing and hinging, cardinal, meaning that hinges, if your whole life hinges on courage, on temperance, on wisdom, then you could be good. You're going to be good CEO. You're going to be good, burger flipper. Whatever you do, it's not really that. It's who you are. So being true to that identity of a beloved daughter or son and heir to eternal kingdom will get you everything that you need in this life. And literally, that's what Jesus says. Jesus says, seek the kingdom of God first, and everything else will be added. And sometimes the people think that we need to, I don't know, live on the street and be very poor, and then that's what Jesus. No. It's the priority. It's a pyramid of priority, and what comes first. And if God is in first place, then everything else will be in its proper place. Your career, your achievements, your bonuses, and all those things. But seek the kingdom of God first, and then everything else, Lord says, will be added to you. So that's kind of for my.
I love it, because at the Catholic CEO, that's what we try to do. We try to say to people just what we're trying to put that into practice. Live the virtuous life, no matter what you're doing, as an employee of a corporation or the leader of a business or a startup or something like that. That's the answer. So thanks, Father, for clarifying that. We could, I think we're going to have you back, because there's so many other topics I have to discuss, and we're such limited in our time today. How about we bring it to a close in a natural sense today, at least for today only. Where, you're running a parish, you've got all these needs. I imagine there's a financial need. Where do people go to support your work? Let's say financially or with prayers. What would you say? Where do they go?
To our website, heucc.co, Holy Eucharist Ukrainian Catholic Cathedral. It's children ministry. This is where my passion is, not just because I have 4 young kids, but I think they're not our future, it's our present. So the whole church here is like, our choir loft is a daycare space in the basement. 5 days we have a full-time daycare. On Saturdays, like, I have 160 kids that we rent out a Catholic school to run catechetical and cultural Ukrainian school. So this is where the effort is put a lot in this parish, and this is where the financial needs are as well. Kids are not paying customers, so we have to fundraise. We have to find funds. So if any generosity anybody feels to support our children's ministry, we really appreciate that.
That's wonderful. I'm sure you'll have some support from all of our followers. So thanks very much, Father. So Father, God bless you in your work, and thanks for being with us today. And I hope that we'll see you again sometime. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry, and to all viewers.
God bless.